So being able to identify the overall trend is going to be the bedrock of our trading strategy. We always want to be trading with the trend. And that is because trading with the trend is going to increase our overall win rate. And that is a huge part of our scalping strategy. We want to have a very high win ratio. Counter trend trading is very ill-advised. There are trades that are possible, but whenever you're counter trend trading, you are going to be losing that little edge that the trend gives you. And so always trade with the trend. Now, there are three major types of trends. We're going to have an upwards trend, a sideways trend, and a downwards trend. Now, the way we identify these is looking at the highs and lows that are made in the trend, right? And so an upwards trend is going to be making higher highs and higher lows. Every time it reverses in either direction, the high is going to be higher than a previous high, and the low is going to be higher than a previous low. And so it's making a stair-step pattern upwards. On the flip side, that is a downwards trend is going to be making lower highs and lower lows in a stair-step downwards pattern. And so these are the two directional trends. And then a sideways trend, the highs are going to be relatively similar and the lows are going to be relatively similar as well, kind of being in that choppy pattern. Now, a sideways trend is a lot harder to trade than a directional trend. And so whenever you're in a sideways trend, be aware of that and be extra cautious. Generally, the better trades will be in an upwards trend or a downwards trend. Now, when we're actually identifying trends, they're not always going to be as easy as one of these drawings, right? They're going to be on candlesticks. And so what we want to be watching is for those highs and lows. And so even if a low is slightly bit lower or a high is a slightly bit lower, generally if you see that lower low and lower high, it still is going to mean that it is in a downtrend, even if it's not as clear all the time. But whenever you are not clear about a trend, that is okay. And that just means that maybe you want to take a step back and get a better picture of things. So let's actually look at a chart here and look at some real examples of these trends. So here on the left side, you can see we have an upwards trend. And so this is pretty prominent by the fact that it's making higher highs and higher lows, right? Overall, the trend is up until we get about here when it starts to essentially become choppy, right? The highs and lows are all over the place. You can't really see if it has a direction. Now, one key note here too is look at the EMA here. We're going to talk more about the EMA later, but the EMA is still generally a pretty good way to see the trend. And now, of course, on this side, we have a downwards trend, and that's just denoted by looking at how the highs and the lows are changing as well, right? And so with this strategy, we don't have to predict when it's going to make these shifts right here, right? When it makes a shift from an upwards trend to a sideways trend to a downwards trend. We don't have to do that. When we are unsure of the trend or when it's making a shift like this, we can wait for the price action or the market to show us what is going on. So when the market shifts like this, we can wait until about here to really say, okay, we're in a downtrend now. And you can start being like, okay, now I can take trades to the short side because we're in a downtrend. And so don't feel pressured to trying to be predicting the trend a bunch and having to know exactly when it's shifting or where it's going. That it is okay to be patient and let the market show you what is going on. Now, this is generally the size of trend we're going to be looking at, but there are always trends on lower time frames and higher time frames. And so what I mean by that is if we actually just zoom out on this chart, you can see that there are broader trends as well going on, right? And so if I zoom out to this is a couple days, you can see we are in kind of an overall downtrend. And so that is something to be aware of, but that doesn't really affect our trading because we're trading on such a small scale and such a short time frame. We don't have to worry about that overall trend as much. Generally, what we only care about is the trend during the current day and over the last couple hours, or maybe even half an hour, depending on how quickly the market is moving. And so here, this is essentially the current day so far, right? Here is about midnight, and then here's about the market open. And so this is the current trading session all through here, right? And so here you can see that overall, the market so far is in a pretty big, it's in an uptrend, right? But during these smaller trends here, here's an uptrend, here's a little downtrend, here's an uptrend, right? And then here's that downtrend. You can trade all those directions. You don't have to stick only to the one direction over the day, as long as there is a good enough trend established in that direction for you to make a trade. Generally, the idea is we want to be identifying the underlying trend that is happening, and we want to be trading in that direction. Now, let's jump into actually drawing trend lines and channels so we can help identify these trends.